How do you turn obstacles? How do you turn adversity? How do you turn the perceptions and the cues and the stereotypes that others have against you to work in your favor, right? So when we think about edge and what that actually means, we often think about it as somebody having an advantage, right? That you're somehow born into some kind of advantage, or you're in the right circles, or all these sorts of things, and that's what we naturally tend to think about. But in terms of gaining an edge, decisions are made based on signals. Decisions are made based on conversations, based on interest, based on stereotypes, based on cues. And when we think about all of the uncertainty in the world, it makes sense. Those are the ways that we're actually picking up on information. When there's not hard data out there, we rely on the soft data to then help us interpret what's happening. And so with this uncertainty, we often think that it leads to these negative outcomes. But with that uncertainty also gives us an opportunity. Gives us the opportunity to actually shape things and guide things and help them work in our favor. And so part of gaining an edge is recognizing, number one, that there is a myth of meritocracy. But number two, because of uncertainty, we can actually turn things to work in our favor and gain that edge. The things that I had been studying that I didn't even quite recognize were these protagonists that were gaining an edge for themselves. So in my research, I study disadvantage and I study inequality. I studied in a number of different contexts, but for the most part, I've been studying it in the venture capital and in the tech entrepreneurship realm, right? So I've been studying how investors make their decisions based on gut feel, because when there is a lot of uncertainty, they rely on their experience and their prototypes and their attributions and their perceptions. And what happens is that often we know that, for example, females are only getting 2% of all of venture financing out there. We know all of these sorts of things. But what I've been trying to push the envelope on and what I've been studying is how do we actually inoculate against these kind of biases? So for example, I found that when females are presenting to investors, they're more likely to get asked different types of questions. They're more likely to get asked prevention-focused questions, where are focused around risks. Who are the competitors? How far could you take this in terms of, did you Turing test this? All of these sorts of questions, whereas men are more likely to get asked what are called promotion-focused questions. Questions around, what other industries would be interested in this? What other product lines? Where else could you extend this? And so what I found is that when entrepreneurs, both male and females, are able to create or flip the questions around or flip their answers around in a way that is more promotion-focused, they're able to equalize and they're able to actually be more successful in the way that, and more persuasive in their pitches. I've also studied inequality and disadvantage and obstacles in the healthcare setting. So recently, my co-authors and I found that in medical settings, when you're having a heart attack, if you have a physician who is the same gender as you are, you're actually more likely to survive a heart attack. Why would that be, right? Physicians, when you come to the emergency room, their only job is to save your life. There should be no difference based on what gender you are. But I found that there's also ways to inoculate against these sorts of differences based on perceptions and communications and the way that you're going to create that edge for yourself. I found it in hiring, when you're actually interviewing for top management positions, the types of skills that they're looking for. Do they actually weight your objective, functional expertise as much as they weight your influence, your political skills, and all of those other types of perceptions that people are making? And so there are lots of different ways to actually take these disadvantages, take this adversity, take these obstacles, and actually turn them to work in your favor. And that's what creating and gaining an edge is about. So in the book, what I talk about is how gaining an edge for yourself is composed of a bunch of different factors, right? The first factor is really thinking about how you enrich, right? We all know that we provide value, and the two things that we need to do when we provide value are demonstrating that we provide that value and also having others believe that you provide that value. Now, some people are really good at the second, when they don't really have the first. We all know people like this, okay? That's not a sustained edge, right? And we know lots of people who are successful in those ways, and it leaves us frustrated, right? When you ask anybody, how have you been successful in life, anyone who's made it, anyone who's done anything, a lot of times the answer is, oh, it was hard work. It was effort, right? Now, I'm not saying hard work and effort are not important. Those are critical. Those are the things that I tell my children on a daily basis, right? Work hard. Make sure you're putting in the effort. But you can take two people who put in the same amount of effort, who put in the same amount of hard work, and they're going to achieve very different outcomes. And so what is that hard work plus? What is that extra factor that's going to actually take your hard work and allow it to work harder for you? Okay? And so that's sort of that first element. And the second element is actually what sequentially comes first, but that we don't actually understand and we're not actually able to do until we know the value we bring, until we know how we can enrich. And that second factor is delight. Right? How do you delight your customer? How do you delight others? How do you giggle like a nervous schoolgirl, but somehow delight someone who's worth $20 billion in a way that he laughs and giggles with you, and then invites you into his office and gives you all sorts of information that he never would reveal to somebody else, right? And the third element is really about guiding, because it's not enough just to giggle nervously and delight somebody. You have to continue to guide that interaction. You have to recognize that these signals and these cues and these perceptions continue to be a part of that interpersonal relationship. And when you're actually seeking those rewards or you're seeking that outcome, what you need to be doing is continuing to guide those perceptions, right? Knowing the stereotypes that people have against you, knowing that those are certain things that they're going to be making attributions about. And as you continue to guide those, you can do things like turning those questions into promotion-focused questions that are looking at a potential rather than risk. Guiding that communication, knowing that your physician, for example, is not aware that females and males have different symptoms when they're having heart attacks. Guiding those interactions so that you continue and so that you can show how you're able to enrich and provide value and create and gain that edge for yourself. And so when we think about all of the things that all of the people we're interacting and all of the things that we're trying to do in our lives, again, it's knowing that this hard work has to be there, that this is not something that is a secret sauce or a magic formula or something that is inauthentic where we're just being persuasive and influential. This is something that is based on, that is grounded in the effort that you've put in, the hard work that you have, and it's by being authentic and knowing those things that you provide that you're then able to delight in a way, enrich in a way, and guide in a way that allows you to gain that edge. Thanks so much.